All right, fasten your seatbelts and put on your sarcasm helmets, because it's time for the event more eagerly awaited than your annual visit to the in-laws, a rundown of Dune Part 2, and this sequel is so good, it almost makes you forget the existential dread of Part 1. Now, I'm not saying the first movie was terrible, but it was just a lot slower than I expected, and if someone was a first-time viewer of the Dune movie, they'd probably get bored quickly. Imagine, if you will, a film that actually listened to all the whining and nitpicking and said, "Fine, we'll fix it. Happy now?" It's like finding out your least favorite vegetable suddenly tastes like pizza. Remember how some people thought Part 1 was slower than a snail on a leisurely stroll? Well, guess what, because Part 2 cranks it up to 11. If Part 1 was the appetizer, Part 2 is the all-you-can-eat buffet you've been dreaming about, and the filmmakers basically heard the snores and decided to swap the lullabies for electric guitar solos. And the characters in the movie? They're not just cardboard cutouts anymore. They've got depth, they've got layers like onions, or maybe parfaits, because everyone loves parfaits. And if you don't know what a parfait is, it's literally just a cup filled with layers of ice cream with some fruits in it. But anyway, watching this movie made us spend more time with the characters, making us care about them more. Now, let's talk action, because this movie is packed with it, and I'm pretty sure they saved all the budget from Part 1 and just splurged on epic battle sequences. And the Harkonnen showdown was indeed a spectacle to witness, because it felt like watching a high-stakes boxing match, but with an artistic monochrome filter. Just imagine the intensity of a heavyweight championship combined with the visual appeal of a classic film noir, and the filmmakers definitely decided for this movie that even in the midst of chaos and conflict, there should be room for style. Visually, this movie is so stunning it'll slap your eyeballs and call them Timothy. The first movie was pretty sure, but with Part 2 it felt like they took the word pretty and injected it with cinematic steroids. And the sound used for the movie was literally eardrum ecstasy, because the soundtrack is a collection of bangers. And a lot of sci-fi themed movies usually get it wrong, but this movie did a good job because the love story was not cringe and had all the feels without making you want to hide under your seat. But hey, let's keep it grounded, because this movie isn't without its flaws. It's not like they found the hack to a perfect movie, because making a perfect movie is like finding the perfect recipe for grandma's homemade cookies, and that's never going to happen because she is taking it with her to the grave. And with so much happening, some elements did get misplaced, much like that elusive TV remote that always seems to vanish right when your favorite show is about to start. And as for Paul's future sight, well, at times it felt more like a future haze. Some of his choices seemed as random as asking a weather app for relationship advice. Additionally, the demise of some significant characters seemed rather underwhelming, and it felt like the script picked a key character and prepared them for an unexpectedly mundane exit. But overall, Dune Part 2 is like a roller coaster that you don't want to get off, and I'm giving it a comfortable 9.1 out of 10 for everything combined, mainly because they were able to do quite a lot with a budget of about $100 million, and I know that sounds like a lot of money, but movies of that scale usually have a higher budget. The entire movie felt like the filmmakers took all the right spices, threw them into the pot, and out came this sci-fi gourmet dish. Can't wait for Part 3 if they are ever going to make one, and all I can say is that they have a bigger job to do and millions of people to impress with how well this movie turned out. Oh, and before I forget, let's give a round of applause to the actors, because they didn't just show up. The actors really put their hearts and souls into the role, or at least some of them did, and you could almost tell who was passionate about their character and who was just there for the paycheck. Every character felt so real, you'd think they were your next-door neighbors. Austin Butler did an amazing job as the new big bad, giving off vibes that are more menacing than your mom when you haven't cleaned your room.